There's no world where Dak comes back and doesn't have his job, right?
No, not a chance. This was the this was like a good just a good reminder that one of the reasons the Cowboys have been winning all these games is because of their defense and their running game, not because of Cooper
You're
Rush.
telling me Cooper Rush's 95 yards wasn't really the reason they won that game?
Yeah. Guess what? So in last week, his completion percentage was only 56%. It's not like he was lighting the world on fire last week either.
Speaking of lighting the world on fire, how was your wedding?
Oh, I lit the world on fire at the wedding. Ripped up the dance floor a little bit. I don't know if I talked about this last week. The music for the event was dueling pianos, which is actually really cool. Didn't know how I was going to feel about it, but they did like a mashup of early 2000s punk rock where they did like 7 different songs all as one, which is really cool. They did Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, some Frank Sinatra, some country music, some of your classic sing-alongs like Sweet Caroline and stuff like that. So it was very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, we're still getting still. You guys have been going to all these weddings, and we didn't. We just have the 2 coming up, but yeah, I'm excited. But today was kind of our last nice day of the year. It was 80 and somewhat sunny, a little breezy, but we actually just went and kicked a soccer ball around. That's the reason I pushed back the episode a little bit, because we got to get some practice in before beer league starts next week. I play goalie. It's a lot of fun, and thankfully I haven't been hit in the face too hard yet in my 2 years of doing it. So maybe 3. I lost track, but I've been playing beer league goalie way too long.
So how serious is this league? Like on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being paid professionals, 1 being elementary school recess.
Well, there are teams in the league that are closer to 4. There are teams that we play that have people that played in college and whatnot, and we have a couple people on our team that played in high school. Me, not one of them. I have no goalie experience whatsoever, and it shows. I do my best, but some of the ones that get through me are a little suspect. So at the end of the day, I try to just focus on myself and try not to suck as much as I can. But yeah, there are definitely teams that are a lot better than us, and that's okay because we just have to understand our limitations. It's like almost like a microcosm of the Bears in a way. Like I am a starting safety for the Bears, where it's just like sometimes things are just going to get through, and it's my job to just try to make sure it doesn't turn into a touchdown.
And then sometimes you just have to watch back and watch your offense flounder for the majority of the game.
Well, we do pass better than the Bears, so
not too difficult.
Hey, I'm trying to think of got any good non football stuff before we get in. I'm trying to think of. Were you a SpongeBob person when you grew up, or still are?
No, I feel like I'm more of a SpongeBob person now. Not that I watch it, but just the jokes.
Well, to tie SpongeBob into football a little bit, don't you find it kind of comically hilarious that some of the backdrop music for like the early seasons are all like the old classic NFL like theme song type of music? I don't know how that became a thing or the legalities of that. Did they have to like pay the NFL or whatever to use those songs in their episodes?
They had to have. Who? I wonder what they even use those songs for anymore.
I don't even know. Just literally probably NFL Network, Glory Days, here's Jim Brown running over people kind of highlights.
Man, Ramblin' Man from Gramblin'. The Roundup. Oh, man. I wonder if we'd get trademark infringement because I could jam to these right now.
We would get DMCA'd and thrown into the gulag.
Damn, Roundup was a banger. Wow. I'm sorry.
I can just hear them, some of them in my head when they're giving like speeches or whatever, and it's like like just like why is that in the show?
Do you remember when they had the remix one, like the hip hop remixes on Madden?
No.
It's one of them right now is a Chilling Championship, the Riffs remix.
Is it actually any good, or is that just an abomination to what the original was like?
No, if there wasn't trademark infringement, I'd make this our intro song.
Actually, if we can make our intro song, we've discussed this because, if we become obscenely wealthy one day, we're actually going to buy the rights to a legit song. Although what did we decide on? King's Dead by J-Rock?
Dude, I don't know. I think Sam Spence, the Chilling Championship, the Riffs remix might take it.
You don't want Kendrick to just come in and be, hit me with that bullshit. You ain't even round. You were a tourist.
That would be number 2. Damn, that was... I just had flashbacks to playing like Madden 06, 07, 08, just until 2 a.m. over my winter break as a middle school student.
That was peak Madden. Whenever, I think it was the one with Sean Alexander on the cover where they introduced Superstar Mode. That was when Madden became really fun, in my opinion. Because I always wanted to just like play quarterback and not worry.
All the training camp challenges were the best, though.
Why? What?
See, those are my science project. My 5th grade, and when I was in 5th grade, we had to do a science project. I hope that kid's got parents with them.
Focus.
Like 4-year-old just went cruising by. There's a second 4-year-old cruising by, but there's no parents. They're on bikes with like neon lights. Anyway,
what sketchy neighborhood do you live in? Can you tell them you're trying to record an episode right now and that they're distracting?
But I did a science project in 5th grade with Madden, and it was my, you had to come up with like a hypothesis, like if this, then that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically I ran the exact same play and threw it to the exact same receiver 10 times on Madden in like training camp mode against the Lions defense to figure out how many touchdowns I could score. I think I scored.
What is the
5 or 6.
hypothesis? If I throw it this early, it'll be a touchdown?
It was something like that. I think it was like if I throw it to, because I think Javon Walker was the receiver I had. I don't remember. It might have been Driver. It might have been after Javon Walker's time. I don't remember. Either way, got an A on the science project, so clearly it was very scientifically correct.
It was just an excuse for you to play video games.
Might have been, but teacher didn't care.
I think.
Mr.
Well, I had a couple
Mr.
that
Shaw.
I remember. I had 3 projects that I distinctly remember. I think I should do these out in parts, so we're only going to share one at a time. I think the earliest one was sticking a stalk of celery into water and then into a cup of water that had blue food coloring in it and then red food coloring and then green, and observing the properties of the celery as it absorbed the water and distinctly figuring out that when the water gets absorbed, different parts of the celery turn different colors because water traveled up it. And somehow that got me, I don't know, I think it was E. Did you ever have a school system where it was ESPN or something? Exceeds.
Like the TV show? Oh,
yeah,
no.
Well, it was like exceeds, satisfactory, poor, and needs improvement or something. I can't remember what the P means. Please off. I don't remember. But remarkably one year, I don't know how, I think I got an N once, and it was actually in gym for sportsmanship, which looking back on it kind of makes a lot of sense because I can be kind of a poor sport when it comes to competitive situations.
That is incredible.
Yeah. If my mom's listening, I'm sure she's going to either chuckle or send me a text saying, you shouldn't say that publicly. But yeah, I got a N. It was my only N I ever got.
Did I ever tell you what I did for my high school gyms?
Did you ball out? And
So we had 3 different gym classes we had to take in high school, and I saved all of them for my senior year.
Which is intelligent.
Second semester. Or second half of the year. So I had 3 gym classes for the last, 4 months that I was in high school. There were some days I literally just had 2 back-to-back gym classes and then got to go home.
You know what my biggest regret is, though? Is, because that sounds fun and just haha, it's a joke schedule. But, man, we really should have been taking advantage of those, college prep classes that would have been on the school's dime or whatever. I'm pretty sure I read a story once where this guy kept doing those college classes to get college credits where you go off site to like a campus and do your classes instead of being in high school. But then he kept intentionally failing one class in the high school side of things so that he wouldn't be able to graduate. So then next year he would do more college credit classes, but then keep failing and have to keep coming back. And he graduated with enough college credits to not even need to go to college, except he didn't even pay for any of it because it was on the high school's dime. It's just like, man, I mean, I'm pretty sure fraud, whatever, he had to pay for it anyways. But like, man, I really should have done some of those because that would have been a quick way to save a couple bucks. Although the rest of my student loans are about to be forgiven, hopefully. I think. Maybe. I don't know. Sorry. Not politics. But yeah, I got to check Twitter to see what's going on there.
I trust the federal government as much as I trust the direction of NFL referees.
Oh, man. Should we start right there? Well, before I say that, I thought you were about to go on another rant about how we should be trusting Chicago with all of our tax dollars, because that was probably the funniest thing you've said on this podcast so far.
I'll save that for a later date and time.
Once they announce the stadium and how the budget's going to work, then we can go happily go on a rant about that. But I think we should normally we just kind of kick off with some games, but the roughing the passer situation is becoming a bad one, and it's been a bad one for the last several years. It's been bad since that one time that one quarterback got sacked in a pretty brutal manner, broke his collarbone, was out for the year, and then they had to reinvent the rule just because of his jackassness and his whining and all of their fans' whining. I can't remember who the name of the quarterback was, but I'm kind of annoyed.
Do not put that evil on him in this franchise.
Maybe not the franchise. I'll put it on him.
You can trace this it was a combination of that hit, the Tom Brady knee injury in like 2007 or whenever it was when we got the Matt Castle season. Just anytime a big-name quarterback goes down, it has only fueled this fire even further because I'm sure the NFL notices the dip in the ratings. That is the only reason. They make these decisions primarily for the bottom line and for no other reason.
I actually don't mind the low hit one. That makes more sense to me because unless you're kind of tripping on yourself or whatever, you have no reason to go low on a quarterback. If you're kind of ushered into the quarterback in a low manner because that's the way you're being blocked, that's one thing. But if you're just deliberately going low on a quarterback who's planting their leg, I think that's kind of a dick move. But what we saw with the Chiefs, with Chris Jones sacking Derek Carr, stripping the ball out and recovering, but because the full weight of his body landed on Carr, that's roughing the passer. That, to me, correlates directly to what happened to Rodgers. Although it's not even the same because Barr hit Rodgers, 2 seconds after the play?
Yes. It was after he released the ball. I also think these calls are somewhat a reaction to the Tua hit, to be honest. I think it's just the NFL realized, oh, shit, we didn't do enough. Now let's go way over the top.
See, but even those, because both of his were whiplash into the ground. I mean, I don't think the first one, did the player put all of his weight into Tua as he landed? I think Tua's neck just whiplashed.
No, he did not.
And then the second one was, again, his head just got thrown into the turf. Are we going to start flagging players for whipping quarterbacks around in a circular motion? Like, where do we start drawing the lines? Like, these things it's a violent sport. These things are going to happen. Like, do you remember the NFC Championship game between the Bears-Packers where Julius Peppers destroyed Rodgers and got a flag, even though he was, like, fully standing up, and it's just he got a flag for being 6'5" and being fast? Like, what are these guys supposed to do?
Well, did you hear what, like, what's his name? Jerome Bogert? Bogert. Did you hear what his reasoning was behind the penalty?
No. Do I want to hear it? Because they had that was an awful officiating crew on Monday night. They had several just bad calls all night.
So this was the Tampa Bay one.
See, that was the other egregious one, and that one was even. I didn't even understand that one bit because that wasn't even a full body weight one either.
Okay, here was the quote. What I had was the defender grabbed the quarterback while he was still in the pocket and unnecessarily throwing him to the ground, said Boger in a post-game pool report. That is what I was making my decision based on.
So Boger did the Brady one, because I know Carl Sheffers did the Chris Jones Chiefs one. And that guy reeks of ineptitude, in my opinion.
But where I was going with Boger's was you were just talking about like his head slapping the ground. Like obviously Brady's head didn't even touch the ground in this one, but I could almost see like how they don't. I don't know. I don't see anything. I'm not even gonna lie. They were all bogus.
You're trying to draw parallels that aren't there, maybe.
Yeah. No. It's like trying to make tinfoil hats out of like wax paper.
Reynolds wrap. So
yeah,
I think we can agree that if a player like deliberately launches their helmet into the helmet of a quarterback, or if there's any sort of late hit where it's, let's say within discretion, but let's say a second and a half after they throw it, I think there should definitely be roughing the passer calls, right? Like you shouldn't just be able to tee off on the quarterback at your own free will. And I'll be honest, I think most defenders do a pretty good job at it. Like, quarterback releases the ball, and now most times you just get a two-hand shove, but you don't get guys dogpiling on them like you would have, 10 years ago. I just think the refs need to chill out a little bit, and I think the owners kind of need to get a handle on this when the off-season meetings, because if you want to stick up for your quarterback in your franchise and be like, I need to protect my quarterback, and if you do this, it's going to be a 15-yard penalty. We're going to get an automatic first down. That's also going to come back to bite you someday when you're trying to get off the field on a third down, and then your own team gets 15 yards for doing it to the other team's quarterback. So it's like, sure, you want to protect your own quarterback, but at the same time, you also need to kind of watch out for your defense a little bit and think about it's not. I know it's a quarterback-driven game. Asterisk, Cooper Rush, Geno Smith. But at the end of the day, you also have to watch out for your defense a little bit too. So I think both of those calls were horseshit.
Well, that's the crazy thing about it. You just said, like, this goes back to the Anthony Barr hit on Aaron Rodgers. But what's so ironic about that is then the very next season, when Clay Matthews hit Kirk Cousins at the end of a game, on what should have been a game-ending interception, there was a roughing the passer call that was fairly soft, if you ask me, as a biased fan. But it's just crazy how it basically just came back to bite the Packers in the ass anyways.
Yeah, the two that I can't stand is one, when you two-hand shove a quarterback kind of after they throw and they kind of harmlessly fall to the ground, and that's roughing the passer. And the second is when you put your hand up to try to block the throwing motion and you accidentally hit them on the helmet. And we're not even talking like a violent hit. You're talking about your hand touching his helmet is a roughing the passer, because you can't touch their helmet or their head in any way. And I can't stand it. So I think it's going to slowly start gaining momentum, and I really hope they do something to address it one day, but I don't know. But we'll kick it off with the Chiefs Raiders, since we just talked about it. So Chiefs struggled early, came back and won. Travis Kelce had like 29 yards of receiving, but 4 touchdowns. Was just getting wide open in the red zone, and Patrick Mahomes took the opportunity to taunt the Raiders bench after one of the touchdowns and hold up the 4 fingers, and I just don't care for that at all. It's like, you've lost 3 division games in your whole career. Why don't we start acting like it? Like beating it's like when Rodgers taunts the Bears. It's like, does that really make you feel better? Like, come on. So
see, I just love divisional rivalry trash talk.
It's not even. How is it a rival? It's like the Bears Packers. How's it a rivalry if the same team just loses over and over again? Although, 2 things with that. First of all, Raiders should have won, right? So I don't think the Chiefs are as good as people think they are after struggling against the Colts, and I don't rate the Buccaneers super highly right now. I think they'll come around in November and start to kick it into gear, but right now I don't think the Buccaneers are as good as they could be. I think the Bills are going to kick their ass this week. But coaching malpractice all over the Raiders in so many instances. I have to ask you, maybe I'm just too old for this shit. I don't understand. How does going for 2 when you're up or when you're down by 1 point with 4.5 minutes to go, I'm all for analytics, and I'm all for, hey, if it's 4th and 1 at the 45-yard line, the percent chance of us winning if we go for it is this. Where does the analytics say that you going for 2 there is the correct thing to do because you get a higher probability of winning? Can anybody prove that?
No, that one I don't get. There's some other weird ones that I sort of understand, but yeah, with 4.5 minutes left, that was crazy.
And in their defense, the 2-point play looked like it was into me. Again, that was another suspect officiating decision, and then they just had to stand with the call on the field. It almost worked, actually, because they did get the ball back, and then on they had a 3rd down conversion that was called back because Devontae juggled the ball before getting both feet in. And then on 4th and 1, why are you throwing the ball 40 yards? That's one of my biggest pet peeves in football. You need 1 yard. Why are you chucking the ball down the field? And Renfro and Adams ran into each other, and it was just a whole thing.
You could say the same thing about the first touchdown of the game, though. It was 4th and 1, and they hit Devontae on that 58-yard pass. So,
but it's different when the game's on. When the game's on the line, though, when you just need a yard, man, there's got to be a better route. You're not going for the home run. You got Daniel Carlson too. You get 10 yards, he's gonna make it. So I hated that whole sequence.
How many timeouts did they have left?
I do not know. I want to say 1, but it was that and the 2-point conversion. I just think was really, and they started out really well, and then they came out of the second half and kind of threw down a stinker. But then they started to get it back a little bit. It was really nice to see Devontae kind of start to show his worth and show why he's one of the best in the league. And then obviously his performance was overshadowed by what happened after the game. As he's walking to the tunnel, he cross paths with a photographer that's going the kind of perpendicular direction, and Devontae puts out 2 hands and shoves him to the ground and then keeps walking. I kind of have some thoughts about that. I sympathize for Adams because I'm from looking at it from a couple different angles, it looks like his head's down when he's walking, and all of a sudden there's just this photographer that's walking into his path. And his reaction definitely could have been better. My reaction, I don't think, would be to put up 2 hands and shove the person. I'd be trying to maybe grab them or just back away a little bit. I don't know if 2-hand shove would be the first thing I would do. Also probably running really high on emotions because of, how the game ended. He was really visibly frustrated with how the game ended. And then, shoves the guy to the ground, apologizes after the game about it. His apology was kind of weak because he was still kind of blaming the photographer a little bit. So it's a little bit of gaslighting there. But and then for the photographer to need to go to the hospital and blah, 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 just to punch up the lawsuit so he can get more money, I think it's kind of a scumbag move because it's literally if you guys had just shaken hands, maybe done an under the cover thing or something. I don't know, but is that how you saw it, or did you? Because I know Devontae's, and he's not a monster or anything like that. It's an unfortunate situation.
Well, that's crazy. The most aggressive I had ever seen Devontae, other than that, was in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers when he puffed his chest out and got a 15-yard penalty. So I just thought that was super out of character. I do get what you're saying about him having his head down and not seeing him. So I kind of get the shock factor. But yeah, the way he shoved him was so egregious. I mean, it was very aggressive. So in his apology, he's like, oh, I sort of shoved him, or no, dude, you full on it was a full extension. But for the camera guy, also, it didn't really look like he had much awareness about what was going on around him. I'm not blaming the guy at all, but also dude, what are you doing? Not even looking to see as you run perpendicular through the tunnel. I don't know, but either way, I think Devontae is gonna be in some trouble. I don't know.
I think a fine. Hopefully not. It's not a suspendable thing in my opinion, especially. He didn't go out of his way to if he'd tracked down that photographer and shoved him to the ground, that would have been really bad. I think this is on the fringe of it's not condonable, but it's also I don't think he should be suspended. I think that would be a little harsh.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Chiefs won their game. They always beat the Raiders, and they made it a little painful, but they got the win. Now they host the Bills. So good luck with that one, Chiefs. I hope Mahomes keeps that same energy when he's down by 21 points. Colts Broncos on Thursday night. My God. I was so glad I was at a movie for that, and I only caught the fourth quarter. If I had to sit down and watch that whole game, whew. And now the Broncos are on Monday night this week. Final score 12-9. It was awful. Offenses were awful. But I think the angst of the Broncos fans came down to the late decision-making by Coach Hackett. Let's backtrack a little bit. So it was 9-9 going into – did they go to overtime or was this a –
Yeah, it went to overtime.
Okay, so it was 9-9. It was 9-6. Broncos were up in the red zone, and Wilson threw an interception to Gilmore. They didn't even need to throw the ball. Didn't need to do anything. They could have just wound down the clock. I think they would have had to have kicked a field goal and give the Colts the ball back, but then the Colts have to go score a touchdown if they make the kick. Colts get the ball back on the interception, go down and kick a field goal. We go to overtime. Colts kick a field goal. Broncos get a chance to retaliate. And on 4th and 1 in the red zone, they throw for it. Shades of the Super Bowl where Wilson was picked off by Butler resurface. And he misses a wide open KJ Hamler to force the ball to Sutton, who's being guarded by Gilmore again. And they lose the game.
Because he was afraid to throw it just like he did in the Super Bowl. He didn't want to repeat what he did in the Super Bowl. It was the same concept. It's having flashbacks.
This is worse than McDaniels. This is coaching malpractice to the nth degree.
I don't think the last play call was. He was open. Russ made the wrong read and the wrong throw. That's not on Hackett. In my mind,
that's fair.
This is your $250 or whatever $1 million quarterback that, oh, by the way, you got put through the ringer because you didn't trust him on the final play of the game in Seattle, which I still agree that he should have been put through the ringer because you're lining up for a crazy field goal. Now you say, you know what, screw it. I am going to trust our guy, our franchise quarterback, who we just gave the bag to. We backed up the Brinks truck and said, here you go, Russ, hop in, let's ride. And
oh, God, don't say it that way.
And he misses his wide open read, which who knows who the play was designed for, but the way that route was run, it looked like your typical rub route on the goal line that, you kind of hold the defender on the outside, and woof. This is making Pete Carroll look very good.
Yes. I think one of my favorite arguments on Twitter was that Russell Wilson was wasting Pete Carroll's prime. Maybe we've been duped. Maybe we've been duped into thinking Pete Carroll's a bad coach. So, this guy has the bold-faced nerve to sign off his press conference by saying, Broncos country, let's ride, after putting that performance in. So,
I think the thing that was most telling about the end of that game for me was the KJ Hamler stare down after he spiked his helmet of like, dude, are you kidding me? I just have to assume he was staring down Russ afterwards.
Yeah, it's going to be if they can't turn this around, like we've talked about, coaches are going to go first. They're not going to get rid of the quarterback quite yet, but
no.
He may not be too far, and they're stuck with that contract now and without the picks. So, tough situation for the Broncos.
Well, and let's say it does go bad for the season, and you try to ride it out for part of next year. It's not like you're ever going to find a team that's willing to trade for that quarterback with that contract, with that level of talent at that age. Like, you're screwed.
Yeah, and I think the GM is a former Vikings assistant GM too, so I think he's got some hot water to deal with as well. He's probably getting a little nervous.
So contracts better than I do. Why did they give him that big extension before the season even started?
I mean, you just have to look at, from their point of view, you just have to look at what Russell was able to do consistently over an 11-year period and just, think, hey, with a more advanced offense with us, he's just going to be able to replicate that even further when he's got guys like Judy and Sutton and whatnot to throw to. I mean, like I said, the first thing that's going to go is play calling. That's going to be the first thing that they're going to try to fix. And if, like, let's say it's like a Jay Cutler situation where, you just bring in a new offense coordinator every year and hope it works, and then it kind of just never does, except for one, or I guess two, Mike Martz once and Adam Gase once. You just keep trying until it works. But, quarterbacks usually, I think we can both agree that Russ is not playing good. But right now it's that unknown variable of, is the play calling just really bad? I don't think it's as bad as it could be. It could be better, but I'd say it's more on Russ right now.
I think it is too. I don't think Hackett is blameless, but some of the throws that he missed, just way behind guys or just bad reads. I mean, it's ugly.
Yeah. I also thought the ending of the Cardinals-Eagles game was pretty ugly. So the Eagles won by 3 after the Cardinals, Amendola missed the last second field goal to tie it. Kyler Murray scrambles on second down and begins to slide 1 yard short of the first down. So they mark the ball 1 yard short, 3rd and 1, and he spikes it, not knowing that he didn't get the first down. Or maybe he did know, but they had to stop the clock anyways. And it's just like, and they had, 30 seconds left, but then it's like 4th and 1 and you don't want to risk it. You'd rather just try to get the tie, and the kicker misses. And it's just, they were so close to actually making that game their own, and they just blew it. And that's one of those, I guess more people are going to be talking about how bad his outfit was before the game rather than him sliding too soon. But that's one of those kind of, you look back on moments and go, wow, let's say they missed the playoffs by one game. That could have easily just been theirs.
I love that. Speaking of his outfit, I love that he just wore his shoulder pads and jersey to the post-game press conference, Kyler.
I didn't see that. What do you think? He was just like over the blowback? It's just like whatever.
Yes, especially after a loss like that. But this has been sort of on brand for the Cardinals this year. They come out really slow and really lethargic, and they look pathetic, and they try to cobble something together in the second half. And Philly's lucky they got away with this one, but you're also, from the Arizona standpoint, you're not going to be able to do that against teams like Philly very often.
Yeah. But also on brand was the Rams losing to the Cowboys. Rams offense is still pathetic. It is awful. And I don't see a way out of it this year for them, honestly. I think they're just kind of stuck. I mean, they've been playing some good defenses, but I don't see a way out of it for this year right now at their current pace.
No, and their schedule doesn't really get a whole hell of a lot easier. This is crazy how quickly they play San Francisco again, but luckily they have the Panthers coming up next, which is as good of a rebound game as you could ask for, especially given the coaching situation there. Then they have their bye week. Then they have San Fran at home. They go on the road to Tampa, at home against the Cardinals, at New Orleans, at Kansas City. I mean, their schedule is not overly easy.
They're lucky to get 3 wins out of that. If you count Panthers and maybe the Saints and then one fluke.
I mean, hell, the last 5 games of the season, they have the Raiders at home. Then they come to Lambeau on a Monday night in December. Broncos on Christmas, and then at the Chargers and at the Seahawks to finish up the season.
That's brutal. That's awful. There's a pretty good chance they're not even going to make the playoffs.
This was really supposed to be the time that they made hay, was really, the first 6 games of the season, minus maybe the Buffalo game.
Well, yeah, and then it's, you got some players on that team who are definitely there to cobble together a championship-type effort. And if they can no longer provide that in the Rams facility, they're going to be looking elsewhere. Or they're just going to retire. So, like, Donald's like, is Donald going to want to do this another year of just being kind of this mediocre team? Is Jalen Ramsey going to want to stick around if he doesn't have to? Is Matt Stafford going to play another season with this awful offensive line? I mean, pretty much the only guy you got pretty much committed to sticking around for multi-years is probably Cooper Kupp because he's still pretty young. So, That's not, and I'm pretty sure they don't have a first round pick this year. So
I know we talked about it before about was it worth this trade, but it wasn't even the Matt Stafford trade. I mean, they've been giving away draft picks left and right for the last 3 or 4 seasons.
oh yeah,
So I guess it catches up to you at some point.
yes. And I'm looking at Tankathon. Yes, so Tankathon's actually a website I discovered today. It's actually really well done. So right now the Rams would draft 13th, but that pick is to Detroit. Cleveland's pick is 8th, but it'd be going to Houston. New Orleans' pick is 9th, but it's going to Philly. Why does Philly have New Orleans' pick? Who did they trade? I have to check in on that. I don't know off the top of my head why New Orleans would have given their pick to Philly. Denver to Seattle for Wilson. San Francisco to Miami. Who did San Fran acquire from Miami?
Was that I don't know.
That's another one I'll have to check in on. And then because of the mishaps in the offseason, the 23rd pick right now, which would go to Miami, is forfeited. So we're actually only going to get 31 first-round picks this year. So, but Carolina's pole position right now. So you go, Carolina. I think you're going to be staying there for a little bit. And so, yeah, the Rams, I just think this will be a recurring thing. I just think they're screwed. I think another guy that's screwed is Zach Taylor. The Bengals lost by 2 to the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. 2 themes from the game. One, Lamar Jackson's been brilliant this year, but his deep ball to guys who are open needs to be better. He had a couple just brutal misses to guys who are wide open. But I don't think it's a worry long term. I just think he just needs to clean it up a little bit for next week. But, man, the Bengals offense looks awful. And that's another situation where you're not going to think it's Burrow. You're not going to think it's Chase. You're not going to think it's Boyd, Higgins, Mixon. Offensive line's obviously not as good as it could be. But there are teams out there with bad offensive lines that make it work, no problem. The play calling is just awful. What was second and goal? They were doing a double end around throw that lost 9 yards. It's just that's another one where I think first thing that's going to be changed is play calling rather than changing out quarterbacks or whatever.
Yeah, the Super Bowl hangover theme here is very real. I was kind of fading in and out during this game sleep-wise just because it had been a long day of football watching and beverage consumption. So
Sprite?
I didn't. What's up?
Like Sprite?
No, Diet Sprite. I don't need to mix my alcohol with sugar.
I was just saying, just Sprite, no vodka or anything, just good old Sprite. Do you still have that varnish remover of alcohol that we had that one time?
Yeah, probably. I don't even remember what it was, but probably.
This is awful tequila.
Yeah. Oh, that stuff is bad. Yeah, I do. I don't touch it ever. But no, I agree that at some point the scheming and play calling and all of that is going to get brought into question. It is kind of crazy when you just think about the leap forward and the leap backwards that some of these offenses have taken this year. And if you would have told me that the Bengals were one of those teams that were going to take a step backwards, I would have been shocked because it was the second half of the season was when they really started coming into their own last year. So you would have thought that would carry over into the regular season. So I don't know if that was just more of them catching lightning in a bottle at the right time, or this is defenses figuring out Zach Taylor's system, or maybe a combination of both. But I was trying to find Burrow's numbers for the year, but it's surprising.
Yeah. And if you kind of take a step back and look at the Sean McVay coaching tree, which is still pretty small. Well, first of all, Sean McVay is struggling right now. Zach Taylor is struggling. And I'm not super convinced on the Vikings yet and O'Donnell. I think their schedule's been pretty weak. You have the one really good win against the Packers, but like we do with other teams, kind of taking a step back right now. I don't know if that win against the Packers is as quality as we would chalk it up to be now, looking back to Week 1. So, I don't know. I think the McVay
and LaFleur is from that coaching tree.
Really? Didn't LaFleur come from? Well, he came from Tennessee. He didn't work at the Rams per se.
LaFleur?
Yeah, didn't he come straight from Tennessee?
He worked. No, he was an assistant. He was like the. I think he was the OC for the Rams.
No, I'm pretty sure he was the OC for the Titans.
He was the OC for the Titans, but yeah, he was with the Rams.
As what, like the quality assistant video manager?
No, he was the offensive coordinator for the Rams.
What year?
He joined on February 2017, so the 2017-2018 season.
That's weird. I never knew that. And then he went to Tennessee and then went to Green Bay?
Yeah.
And when did McVay join? Did McVay join in 2017? Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, he was the offensive coordinator for McVay.
Did he get fired? Why? I feel like going from McVay to, or is it just because McVay called plays and LaFleur didn't? LaFleur is more of just like a figurehead.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll let that pass. But
yeah.
All right, so I guess we can kind of. I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, he'll probably be attributed to the Vrabel coaching tree. But yeah,
you're kidding, right?
Well, I mean, it's more of like who he came from last, in my opinion.
No, because he worked with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and Mike McDaniel all worked together in Washington. Like, haven't you seen those graphics that are like
yeah, where it's like how was Jay Gruden the coach when this was all going on? So I guess Jay Gruden's coaching tree is the GOAT, is what we're saying.
and because he was an offensive assistant at Houston, LaFleur was, when Kyle Shanahan was offensive coordinator at Houston. So I would argue LaFleur comes from the Shanahan-McVay tree because he's pretty much worked with the two of them everywhere he's been other than Tennessee.
Yeah, to me it's more just the black and white. Like, that's where he was last. I don't know. It's kind of convoluted in that situation because you could attribute him to 4 or 5 different people at the end of the day.
But Vrabel's not like an offensive guru, so I don't know. We're going to have to disagree on that one.
I think Vrabel's just a guru at being a tough guy. I don't know if I chalk him up to any sort of guru. But, yeah, that's just my black and white brain, just attributing him to coming from where he came from last. I guess Mike's, or what's his face for Atlanta, Smith, came from the Vrabel tree, but I don't know where he came from first. I guess my view on coaching trees may have to change.
Yeah,
but
I think it does.
Who's Dan Campbell? Where did Dan Campbell come from? Wasn't he like the tight ends coach for the Saints?
Something I don't know.
Well, I think they lost 29-0 against the Patriots in the Matt Patricia revenge game. I think going 0 for 5 on 4th down, I think coaching malpractice has been kind of the theme of the episode. That is awful. I mean, you're talking conservatively, let's say they get 3 out of 5. Because, you should be getting somewhere close to that range if you're going for it all these times. That's 21 points they're potentially leaving on the board right there alone. Like, you look at the score and say 29-0, and I watch the highlights expecting, pick sixes or just getting stuffed on runs or whatever. I'm watching the highlights. I'm like, damn, the line's actually moving the ball pretty well, but it's like 0 for 5 on 4th down. Yeah, of course you're going to get screwed over when you can't execute consistently over and over again.
So at what point do we start to question the Dan Campbell era?
Right now. I think that was it for me. That's the moment where it's like, all right, how much is the coaching not helping the team? Because you can make all the rah-rah speeches you want. You can do all the hard knock shit and everything like that. But if you go 0 for 5 on 4th down because your pride is taking over and you just trust your guys and want to send it, it's like it also has to be encompassed within actually calling smart plays and actually putting your guys in a good position to succeed, not just doing puff your chest out and go for it just because we're strong men and that's what we do.
Yep.
So
I would agree with that, especially with how good this offense is. Well, up until this week, looked.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking pre-episode about how we kind of rate Jared Goff pretty highly right now, and yeah, I think that score is not indicative of what we think of well, at least what I think of the Lions. I think the Lions are much better than what that score indicated. I don't not necessarily saying they should have won the game, but they're much better than 29-0 in my opinion. So got nothing on that. The Chargers beat the Browns on a comeback. Almost got that one right on our predictions. I was getting really excited until it was going poorly, but the one thing I have to highlight from that one is Coach Staley going for it on 4th and 1 from his own half of the own half of the field with like 90 seconds to go, and then they didn't get it. And Keenan Allen was furiously tweeting on Twitter about it because he wasn't at the game, and they've reconciled apparently, but Allen was questioning why they were going for it. And I can't stand that type of play calling in my opinion. Why are you going for it on 4th and 1 from your own half?
I guess that's the Brandon Staley way. I don't know. That has kind of been his MO, and
hate it.
But it's not like the Chargers defense looked bad in the second half. I mean, the first half was pretty bad, but the fourth quarter it held them to nothing. So punt it away. Trust your defense.
Yeah, can't stand it. I think this is again one of those teams that, if they had proper direction, they could easily be 5-0 right now. But they just seem to be logistically failing behind the scenes, and that's going to hold them back a little bit. But, hey, I guess at the end of the day, they got the win. The Jets just mopped the Dolphins 40-17. Teddy was knocked out of the game, so they had to go down to rookie Skylar Thompson. And the Dolphins get the Vikings this week, and we're not sure who's playing quarterback. On the flip side, the Jets go to Lambeau.
Crazy what a team can do score-wise when they're up against a third-string rookie quarterback. It's pretty amazing.
So I'll take that as you're not worried about them this week.
No, that they played like it was a callback to last week when the Packers barely beat Bailey Zappi.
Oh.
And how the Jets did what you're supposed to do to a third-string rookie quarterback.
I think this is a little more indicative that I do think the Dolphins were a little overrated to start the year. I think that's
fair.
I think it's catching up to them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, yeah. But that defense on the Jets side does look pretty legit. I know they were going against third string, but their secondary is looking pretty fierce. So we'll touch on that when we talk about the Packers next game.
And dude, Breece Hall looked like a beast.
Yeah, my fantasy team is thankful. I started him over. I benched Amari Cooper for Breece Hall in my flex spot, and I was happy about that. So thank you, Breece Hall. The rest of the games that we can go through pretty quickly. Bills did exactly what we'd expect them to do against the Steelers, and Matt Canada still has a job. Final score is 38-3. Don't know how Matt Canada still has a job. Matt Rule doesn't have a job. 49ers won 37-15. Baker Mayfield's looked awful. Matt Rule looked awful. So glad that experience is over with, although they gave him one of the worst coaching contracts I've ever seen at a 7-year, $63 million. And so they have to pay him out for this year, but if a college team hires him and sends him a lucrative contract, they don't have to pay him out for the other years, which I think is kind of genius somehow. So, but yeah, thankfully that experience is over. Steve Wilkes is now the head coach. Any good things to say about Matt Rule before we send him on his merry way?
I'm going to steal a stat that I heard on another podcast that Matt Rule in games where the opponent scored 17 or more points was like 1 in 21.
17 or more?
Correct. So as long as you scored 17 points against the Panthers during the Matt Rule era, you were basically guaranteed to win.
Hell, the Bears have scored 17 or more points in majority of their games this year, and we suck.
Yep.
Damn, I wish we got to play Matt Rule every week. So, and it was a good showing by the 49ers, don't get me wrong, but the Panthers just suck. Other than J.C. Horn and Burns and DJ Moore, I'm not sure what they have to look forward to going forward. So
Well, it sounds like they're about to get a whole haul of draft picks.
That's probably the best thing to do right now is to get draft picks, and I mean, they're looking good for that first pick in the draft. So,
Well, that'll be the best way to bring in a new coach is if you can trade away some of these guys and get some draft picks and say, hey, come coach here. You get the first round or the first pick of the first round this year. Plus, look at all these other picks we just acquired.
Sean Payton, here we go.
Could be.
They have to trade for him, though, so I don't know if that's going to happen. The Texans-Jaguars, couldn't care less, 13-6. Texans won. Surprise Texans won. Still can't read the Jaguars. They're beating the Chargers in L.A., and then they're losing to the Texans at home. I don't understand. No idea what's happening.
I got nothing on that other than what you just said.
AFC South matchup pretty much means we probably don't care unless there's some severe playoff implications going on. Saints beat the Seahawks at home by 7. The best fantasy football tight end in history, Taysom Hill, had 3 rushing touchdowns and 0 catches on 0 targets. So I love he's on my bench. I love the fact that he's classified as a tight end. It's so ridiculous. But hey, I'm not going to complain.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So he got 33 points in my league for half-point PPR. So, but I also have Mark Andrews, so I don't think I'm ever going to bench Mark Andrews unless I need to for bye weeks and stuff.
Nope.
But whatever. We touched on the really bad call in the Buccaneers game, but the Buccaneers won 21-15 over the Falcons. Brady has never lost to the Falcons still, so sorry, Atlanta. And then the Titans beat the Commanders on a late game interception in the red zone, 21-17 to seal the deal. And going down to one of our other topics is kind of the poor phrasing from Riverboat Ron in a press conference a journalist asked Ron why the other teams in the AFC or the NFC East are all doing super well, and he just gave the one-word answer of quarterback. Go ahead, David.
Hey, is that like a Freudian slip? I mean, he's not wrong. I think the crazy part is, or not crazy, but the funny part is, like, what is Carson Wentz known for? He's known for being a little fragile at times and taking things a little personal. So I can only imagine just how great this is going to go over in the Washington Commanders locker room, and how many other players are going to start to say, oh, coach thinks the same way we do? Bring on the Heineke show.
Oh, man. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's their backup.
Wow. I'm trying to find it's on the website update. Something about Carson Wentz's fumble. I scrolled down too far. Carson Wentz is now tied for 24th in NFL history in fumble recoveries with 34, implying that in order to have a fumble recovery, you've had to have fumbled, obviously, and he fumbles a shit ton of times. So good if he keeps it up at his current pace, he's going to have the NFL record for that, assuming that he keeps getting jobs over the years here. But listen, I'm not the biggest Carson Wentz fan. I highly doubt he's the whole problem there. And it's, even if that is the way you're thinking as a coach, you are the one that brought him into this situation. Like, he was the guy that you pursued to lead your team rather than opting I know they drafted Howell from North Carolina, but this was the guy that you kind of picked to run your ship. And it's not, is he my first pick? No. Is he going to lead your team to the playoffs? Probably not. Is he the whole reason you suck? Probably not either. So, not the best look. I know they've been kind of backpedaling on what he said, but sometimes you let the genie out of the bag. It's hard to put it back in. So,
yep.
Anyways, another record I wanted to point out is that Aaron Rodgers is now 10th all-time in passing attempts. So, 7,286. You've been alive for 7,286 passing attempts by your quarterback.
I don't know. He's killed me a few times, so I might not be alive for all of those.
Too much tequila, Diet Sprite.
Yep.
Russell Wilson's now tied for 14th in fumble recoveries with 37, passing Chris Chandler, Steve McNair, and Phillip Rivers. And then Justin Tucker's 25th now in field goals, passing Jay Feely. 335 in his career. That guy's going to probably have that record here. That guy could probably play for 10, 15 more years.
I'd say it's crazy he's that far down the list still. I would have thought he'd be higher by now.
Because he's been playing since, like 09, 07, 08?
Yeah, I guess he'll start picking people off left and right, I'm sure. There's probably a cluster in there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start with the Bears this week, shall we?
This is another game I only caught glimpses of because we still had some folks over after the Packers game. But I felt like I blinked, and the Minnesota Vikings were up 21-3 on the Chicago Bears, and it was like, okay, let's change the channel. What's the point of watching this game? But because I don't have Red Zone, this was the only game being broadcast during that time window in my neck of the woods, so we were stuck with that one on. All of a sudden I look up, and here come the Chicago Bears driving down 29-22, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is Justin Fields really about to pull this off? And who is the receiver that fumbled it?
Smith Marset, I think is his name.
So after he got that first down, I was like, why isn't he going out of bounds? Why isn't he going out of bounds? Why isn't he going out of bounds? To me, that was, I don't know what your thoughts were on that, but for those that missed it, Vikings ended up winning 29-22 over the Chicago Bears. The Bears were driving late in the fourth quarter with under a minute left to go down and potentially tie the game and or take the lead if they had so desired by going for two. But instead, strip fumble, the most legit strip fumble where he just stole his manhood. And the Vikings were then able to just run out the clock to end the game. So, Hickey, initial thoughts?
First half was pretty rough. It's kind of the overarching theme of our years. Our first half we're just brutal, going to make adjustments, and we're actually not too bad in the second half. So I think the second half was easily the best we've looked all season on both sides of the ball. I think defensively looked good. Justin Fields looked really comfortable in the second half and had a really good Mike Vick type touchdown run that was called back from a legal block in the back by the same guy, Smith Marset. So he had two pretty critical plays in the game there that really didn't help. And I think the funny part is that he was cut by the Vikings and we picked him up. So it could be an inside job if you're got your Reynolds wrap ready at home. Maybe it was an agent planted to make our lives miserable in Chicago. Who knows? But, I think the overarching theme is that was the second best I've ever seen Justin Fields look in a game. The first was the Monday night game against Pittsburgh last year. So I was really happy to see that. I was really happy to see some good play out of Kmet and Montgomery and St. Brown. A couple drops again, but yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I knew we were going to lose, but I was very happy with the way we played. Definitely wish Smith Marset went out of bounds and didn't try to be a hero, but again, I think we've talked about this before. I just don't want to lose badly. I just don't want to get killed. I don't want to put up 5 yards of passing, whatever. I'm very happy with the way we looked in the second half, and there was a lot of good young guys out there making good plays. So all in all, I got a smile on my face after that one. We got a winnable game coming up on Thursday night against the Commanders. I do apologize that the whole of America has to be exposed to this nonsense. Commanders-Bears on Thursday night. That's just not a great matchup, but I think it's definitely a winnable game if we can kind of keep that second half trajectory going a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is too. And truthfully, if it wasn't for Cam Dantzler's strip, I don't know. I feel like Fields was going to orchestrate at least a touchdown there. And I don't know, if they had scored, would you have wanted them to go for two and end it or kick the field goal and go to overtime?
Well, I don't know. What do the analytics say?
On the road, man, let's get out of here.
Yeah, I would have been fine going for two, and even if we didn't make it, I'd been like, hey, at least we were there. So, yeah, Cousins started out like 18 of 18. It wasn't great. Jefferson was pretty much open mercilessly, but again, second half, we just went in and made those adjustments. And I just wish we could start to work on making some of those adjustments in the first half rather than waiting till halftime to do it. But yeah, it is what it is. Going for 2 would have been fun, but
Hey, I was rooting for the Bears.
I know it's like my favorite game of the year because I know you're going to be on my side for once.
I know.
All right. Well, there wasn't. Yeah, I didn't have any too many big rants to go on from the game, so we can just transition into the Packers, which I'm sure is going to be a lot of fun. So the Giants won 27-22, just as everybody predicted. I don't know, man.
So we had one of our Packer parties this week and had some folks over, and it was one of those at halftime. You're like, oh, double-digit lead. The offense is looking good.
Break out the champagne.
Literally, let's have a halftime shot and let's go win this thing by double digits. Holy smokes, it could not have been further from the truth. I don't know. So we need to start recording when the Packers disappoint me like this, first thing on Sunday, because I was a lot more irrational on Sunday. But man, the game changed in my mind. It was that 3 straight passes and 3 and out on our first drive of the fourth quarter.
Which is awful.
That was the turning point. Because other than that, we only had the ball 2 other times in the second half, and the first time we got the ball, we went on a 4.5 minute drive, and should have been in field goal range, but instead Rodgers gets sacked for a 6-yard loss, so we have to punt. And then in the fourth quarter, we had that terrible 3 and out, and then we had that 6-minute offense where we moved the ball pretty good, had some big third down conversions, and then the play calling down inside the 10, I don't know what that was. Both passes that I got batted away were a little bit maddening. Now, I don't recall if those were supposed to be run-pass options or if they were just strictly pass plays, but it just literally emphasized how Rodgers refuses to throw to anybody else in these crunch time situations other than his safety blankets and Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard. I like to think Romeo Doubs is getting there since he at least threw it to him on that drive and a couple other times in the fourth quarter, or in the second half, I should say. But man, I don't get it. Aaron Jones leads the NFL in rushing yards per attempt, but he's 20th in the NFL in rushing attempts. It's just mind-boggling to me. And that 3 and out drive to start the fourth would have been the perfect time for you to just take a deep breath and say, okay, they tied the game up. Let's just go on a long drive here and see what we can do. No need to take these deep shots and middle to deep shots, 3 straight plays. I don't know. And I don't know if that was Rodgers changing the play at the line, if that was Matt's play calls. I don't know. But that, to me, was the most frustrating part. Never mind the defense.
Well, yeah. So, kind of unpacking that a little bit. So, when this happened in week 1, where it was kind of where's the run game, the Packers proceeded to just run it down the Bears' throat the next week. Although their second half offense was riddled with mistakes and turnovers with fumbles and whatnot. So, I mean, you got this week against Giants, second half offense disappears. Buccaneers, second half offense disappears. Bears, second half offense doesn't really put up a lot of points. I mean, I'm pretty sure we can see how this is going to go with the Jets, where they're just going to run Aaron Jones down the throat of the Jets, especially given how good the secondary of the Jets are. Is that what you're predicting as well?
I mean, yeah, that's our, like you said, that's our MO. What's also just sort of maddening for me is not that I go rewatch the All-22 and break down and dissect every play, but there were a couple plays where Rodgers just misses a guy, or a guy slips on a route, or there's maybe a hint of illegal contact. Not that I'm asking for the flags, but it's just they're so close on some of these pass plays that I hope that like we regress to the mean here where it's like, okay, we're going to hit some of these pass plays, but we're also going to run the ball more because clearly that's where we find our most success. And you would think that a 4-time MVP and a head coach who had one of the best starts in the regular season in the Super Bowl era would be able to do something this regular season to get this offense going, but man, I don't know. Like I said, on the defensive side of the ball is a whole other story because you have some of the best individual talent in the league, yet we can't figure out how to cover a crossing route to save our life.
Well, that's going to be my next question. The Packers have given up the most yards on crossing routes this year. And I think talent, like we've been saying, talent-wise, this defense is there, but the fundamentals are not. And like at this point, does Joe Barry survive the season? Do you want him to survive the season? I'm sure you don't want him to survive the season, but how do you think LaFleur has the guts to pull the trigger on that?
I don't know who he would have in the wings waiting. And I think not understanding the dynamic of the locker room, I think it's all about who these players would gravitate towards, and if there's someone else there that, could A, scheme up a better defense, and B, just garner the trust of the defense, then I could maybe see it happening, but I don't know. If they're, let's say a couple weeks down the road, they're 9-5 or 9-4, and they're still, in the thick of the division hunt / wild card race, I don't see how you fire a guy at that point.
Because I think that's the kind of thing that comes back to bite you in January then.
It is. But with the linebackers we have, we should be able to, between Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker, the crossing routes should be the bread and butter of these tall and fast linebackers.
So that's what I never understand about PFF is like if you're rolling through Sunday Night Football, they roll through everybody and have their PFF ranking. If everybody on the Packers is PFF ranking super high, how come they suck?
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. So, I just think from the outsider's perspective, things are starting to get a little frisky between the talk about Joe Barry being fired or needing to be fired or coming up with something new. Jair Alexander saying, I'm not concerned right now, but if we lose next week, then I'll start being concerned. And then Rodgers being asked about it and say, we don't need that kind of talk, blah, blah, blah. And I know there's some media angles within that and some heat of the moment remarks coming out of those. But are you concerned at all with the tension rising, or do you think is this kind of a relaxed moment and they'll get it figured out?
I don't think it's really either. I don't think it's a relaxed moment. I think it's a, hey, we got to wake up type moment. I'm not worried about the tensions or anything in the locker room or anything like that between the players. But I do think, I don't think we're in relaxed mode where it's like, oh, we're going to get it all figured out. I still err on the side of this team is going to put something together. I shouldn't say has to put something together. I err on the side that they will put something together. Because, again, there's too much individual talent on the defensive side, A. And B, you have who I still think is a very good head coach, Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Lazard. I think there's enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to start putting it together. And Tunyon's only going to continue to get more healthy at the tight end spot. So but the optimism is still there, but it was hampered a little bit after this week. But again, when you go back and look at film after a win, it's never as good as it seemed. And when you go back after a loss, it's never as bad as it seemed. So the sky was falling, but Rodgers kind of said it on the McAfee show today. When your expectations as a fan base and as a beat media around the team is division titles and deep playoff runs and Super Bowl contenders, this is the reaction you get when you lose to a team who a lot of folks didn't think was going to finish the season above 500. So it just kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, the 18-week process is it's a little cloudy at the moment, but that's why it's a process, I guess, right?
Yeah, hey, someone put it best. Last year at this time, the Bengals were coming off a field goal fest against the Packers and a loss at 3-2, and who was it that they had played the week before that? I think they had barely beaten the Texans the week before.
Yeah, I feel like week 6 is actually kind of a low-key a pivotal week for most teams. It kind of vaults you into the second part of your year almost.
Yeah, let's see. So last year, it was the Jaguars. They had beaten the Jaguars 24-21 before then going and losing to the Packers. And
they barely beat an Urban Meyer-led team.
Yeah, and they lost to the Chicago Bears last year.
That was funny. That was hilarious because we had no business winning that game at all. Just Joe Burrow gifted it to us with multiple interceptions and a pick 6.
And they lost to the Jets last year and the Browns.
Weirdest team ever, question mark?
Yeah, but we'll see. I'm not if Panic Button is back here on my shelf sitting next to my Packer helmet, I haven't even turned around to look at it yet. Before, I was probably sitting up like this. Now I've sat back in the chair, but I've not yet even turned around to look at it. So
don't put it outside. A wandering 4-year-old might touch it.
They might. Or the dog across the street might take a shit on it like he did in my lawn this morning at 6 o'clock.
They at least pick it up?
No, they never do. The thing always, if my neighbor's listening, this is how I'm telling you. Your dog takes a poop in my yard at least twice a week.
Off leash?
Yeah, off leash. She just wanders over. Her name's Willow. This morning I opened the door to go for a run, and as soon as I opened the door, the dog was just about to squat, and then it turned around and stared at me. And I was like, why are you looking at me like I'm out of pocket? You're the one taking a dump on my property. Anyways. So the Panic Button, I'm not reaching for it yet. I'm not even looking at it, but I'm aware of where it sits. I know where it is now. We're in the same room.
Don't put it outside. Willow's going to get it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, only other news bits I got is that Blake Bortles retired and Cole Beasley retired. What is your fondest association with Blake Bortles if we're playing that name game?
The video of the gal saying, if you weren't a football player, what would you be doing? And he said, working, construction, ripping cigs.
I remember that now.
And then she said, so what's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? And he said, I don't know, rip a piss.
Yeah, I almost wonder, because I never rated him super high. I wonder how good that Jaguars team would have been if they had like an elite quarterback leading them rather than just kind of Blake Bortles or whoever.
We'll never know.
Because that was actually a really stacked team that one year. They made the deep playoff run, but then they kind of just blew it up not too long after. Yeah, I mean, he was pretty good in college, but other than that, yeah. And then Cole Beasley's comeback tour of the Buccaneers lasted all of 1 week, so which is funny because he retired and then the Buccaneers had to release him, which is kind of funny. Usually they come to some sort of understanding, or I don't know. I just thought the sequence on that was kind of funny. And then I don't have a whole lot else for the rest of the episode except my Get That Man a Mouthguard award for the week. It should just be named after him, as Antonio Brown. His social media antics are just becoming very hard to follow. It's hard to try to piece everything together. He had some not so pleasant things to say about the Cardinals and starting his own franchise. He's been making fun of Tom Brady and Giselle as they are allegedly going forward with a divorce.
Which is wild because Tom literally put him up.
Exactly.
Housed that guy.
He vouched for him. So, all a little weird. It's really fascinating to watch that character arc and where he was as honestly on the trajectory to be one of the greatest receivers in the last 20, 30 years to kind of now what he's known for. And interesting is all I got to say. So weird times with whenever he's on social media.
I think I alluded to this earlier, but you could argue that Mike Tomlin had two of the top 5 these men need a mouthguard players of all time in Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. And you could also even say Ben Roethlisberger, because I know he kind of mended this, but that guy was a scumbag. And he made that team run like a well-oiled machine. So I still cannot believe that Mike Tomlin was able to cover all that up for as long as he did and just make it look like everything was smooth under the surface.
And then he brings in one Matt Canada, and it's all just gone to shit. So, yeah, I don't know. Antonio Brown, goofball. But Bears play the Commanders at Soldier Field. They're donning their orange helmets for the first time. Maybe they'll look better on the field. I still don't like the images of them online. I'll give the Commanders the nod at 21-16.
Did you see the NFL's tweet earlier today?
About what?
It says, these receivers needed just one hand to put on a show Sunday. How do they follow on Thursday Night Football? And they tagged
Darnell Mooney.
Darnell
That was an
Mooney
awesome catch.
And De'Ami Brown on the Commanders. And the replies are so funny because it's just like, you guys
Nobody
are literally
wants this.
trying. Yes. Yeah. Like one
Hey,
guy
De'Ami
posted
Brown had
picture.
a great catch. I don't know if Amon-Ra St. Brown was watching, but he actually had a long touchdown pass. So good for him.
This one guy posted a picture of a bike with someone trying to put gas in it, and the caption is, he trying to gas it up.
Yeah, some of these primetime games have been just like, if this game was on noon on Sunday, at least we could just like kind of just gloss over it. But man, and he's like, even Chiefs Bills isn't even primetime. It's 3:25 CBS. What is this? Oh, the Sunday night games is Eagle Cowboys. So at least we get one good primetime game this week. But yeah, I still have the Commanders winning. I think Wentz might use this as motivation to do something. And I guess they're both really bad teams. So it could go either way. I'm not pessimistic on the Bears. If it's 50-50, I'll try to just pick against them so at least I can be happy when they win. Packers hosting the Jets. They're back in America, no longer in London. You liking their chances?
Noon kickoff at Lambeau. It's the only noon kickoff at Lambeau all season.
Really?
Yep. That's why we're going. We love noon games, just from a pure timing standpoint. I don't see how the Packers lose this game. If they do lose this game, the state of Wisconsin may not be standing come our recording next week.
Well, you got the Commanders after that, so.
It's not very often you say this in week 6, but this is kind of a must-win game for the Packers right now. And they can't win like they did against the Patriots. Like, they need to win fairly convincingly.
Like 14 plus?
Yeah, I think the line right now is at 6 or 7. So they'd have to cover. I don't think there's any option to not cover. So maybe I'll make the mistake again and say I'll take the Packers and the points. But
all right, what's your final score?
I've been really bad with this lately. I'm gonna say 27-10.
All right, there it is.
Because they have to.
They don't have a choice. All right, well, that's that. Thanks so much for listening. I'm sure we'll get a video or two of lighting from Lambeau this Sunday posted, but going to be a good time. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy Week 6.